Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. I am so incredibly thrilled you're joining me today because we're looking into something literally everyone uses every single second, but we rarely stop to actually think about: our own minds. Specifically, we're going to break down what I like to call the ultimate biological toolkit for human survival. We're so often taught that our emotions and our intelligence are like these completely opposing forces, right? Like there's this endless tug of war going on inside your head. But actually, as we'll see today, that's fundamentally just not true. Instead of fighting each other, they actually form this incredibly sophisticated, unified system that's designed to keep us not just alive, but thriving. Okay, let's dive into this roadmap. Think of this as our manual for understanding our own inner workings. We'll start with Section 1, the human toolkit. Then 2, the function of emotions. Section 3 is the Yerkes-Dodson Curve. Section 4, defining human intelligence. And finally, number 5, adapting to our world. Let's get right to it. Now, I want to start things off with a question that honestly might sound kind of out there at first glance. How do a terribly messy, bad breakup and, say, complex mathematical problem solving both actually help us survive? It's a pretty wild comparison, isn't it? One is intensely painful and emotional, while the other feels super cold and calculated. But stick with me here, because as we move through this explainer, you're going to see that both of these vastly different experiences trigger distinct, deeply ingrained mechanisms in our toolkit. And they both share the exact same overarching goal: human adaptation. Section 1, the human toolkit. The absolute easiest way to visualize this framework: think of your mind like a high-performance vehicle. Your emotion is the raw horsepower, the engine that actually gets you moving. And your intelligence? Well, that's the steering wheel, guiding you safely down the road. Moving on to Section 2, the function of emotions. So let's lift the hood and look at that engine, focusing on our most immediate, visceral responses and why they serve as the literal power pushing us forward. First off, emotions directly motivate action. I mean, let's be real, pure logic rarely gets any of us up off the couch, right? It's the feeling, the empathy, the compassion, or even righteous anger that actually spurs us to act in the real world. A really classic example of this is engaging in charity. Just knowing someone needs help logically isn't usually enough. It's that undeniable emotional pull, that visceral desire to ease someone else's suffering, that turns us from passive observers into active, supportive participants. But this engine, it goes way deeper than just random acts of kindness. Emotions are, at their core, deeply rooted survival mechanisms. They fuel our drive for surviving, striving, and actively avoiding danger. We can look back at huge historical figures for this, people like Ambedkar, Gandhi, Telsey, and Kabir. These leaders didn't just calculate their moves based on cold, hard math. They were driven by a profound, burning, emotional striving against societal dangers and deep injustices. That emotional engine is exactly what empowered them to push forward and fundamentally change history. And on top of that, emotions serve as a really profound communication tool. They help us make sense of ourselves and, just as importantly, the people around us. Think about the act of talking while weeping. We have absolutely all been there. When someone speaks to you through tears, it instantly cuts through the normal conversational noise, doesn't it? It forces you to suddenly understand your own internal state, and it acts as this unavoidable, unmistakable signal to others. It instantly broadcasts distress, relief, or even profound joy in a way that mere words simply never could. Which brings us right to Section 3, the Yerkes-Dodson Curve. We know the engine pushes us, but now let's analyze how that emotional power directly impacts our actual real-world performance by finding what we call the arousal sweet spot. So, the Yerkes-Dodson Curve is a fascinating psychological model. It essentially proves how varying levels of emotional arousal, think of that as stress, intense excitement, or pressure, can either completely elevate your performance or drastically reduce it. Let's use a highly relatable example. Say you're a student studying for massive exams, and your partner suddenly leaves you right after they get selected for a huge life-changing position. That massive emotional spike really only goes one of two ways. It can light a total fire under you, making you work incredibly hard to prove yourself, or the sheer weight of it can completely overwhelm you, causing you to just shut down and stop studying altogether. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the actual visual representation of that phenomenon. You see that inverted U shape? On the bottom axis, we have arousal, going from low emotional stress all the way to high. And on the vertical axis, you've got performance. You can clearly see that as arousal increases from 0, your performance climbs right alongside it. You're sharp, you're motivated, and that peak right there at the top, that is your sweet spot. But look really closely at what happens the second you cross that dashed line. If the emotional arousal keeps building and turns into overwhelming stress, your performance doesn't just casually plateau, it drops off a cliff. The engine essentially floods, and your ability to perform plummets straight back down to zero. And this curve doesn't just dictate how we study or handle breakups, it scales all the way up to massive, high-stakes decision-making. Emotions can vastly improve or severely worsen choices made on a national or even global scale. If we neutrally look at historical moments, like the 2019 Pulwama attack or the 2016 demonetization, these are clear intersections where intense emotional arousal and high-stakes choices met. In moments of extreme national pressure or sudden sweeping structural shifts, the emotional state of both leadership and the public undeniably plays a massive role. It acts as a powerful variable that can either acutely sharpen a strategic response or cloud optimal performance. Okay, Section 4, Defining Human Intelligence. Now that we understand our emotional engine, let's pivot to the steering wheel of our human toolkit and break down exactly what intelligence really means in this context. Let's move to and see how this builds. We really shouldn't look at these as totally separate definitions, but more like an evolutionary sequence. First, it starts at the baseline, simply having the capacity to think rationally and act purposefully. Second, as our environment throws curveballs, it scales up to the ability to adapt to new situations and grasp abstract concepts. Third, when real challenges pop up, it shifts gears into high-level problem-solving and complex decision-making. And finally, step 4 brings the whole thing together in practice, the ability to learn brand new skills and actively apply your knowledge. It's a brilliant ascending ladder of cognitive power. So where exactly does the steering wheel come from? Well, it's basically a two-part system. We have innate intelligence and we have acquired intelligence. Innate intelligence is exactly what it sounds like. It's what you are naturally born with. It's your baseline biological hardware. Acquired intelligence, on the other hand, is the software you install over time through life experience, education, and basically just trial and error. To successfully navigate through life, you're constantly relying on a seamless, real-time blend of both those built-in mechanics and the lessons you've picked up along the way. And this brings our narrative to its climax. Section 5, Adapting to Our World. This is where we synthesize the whole shebang and reveal the ultimate purpose of combining both our emotion and our intelligence.
And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate goal of intelligence, which is practically executing our adaptation to the environment around us. It does this through a very specific set of cognitive processes. Perception lets us see the world accurately. Learning and memory let us catalog what works and what completely fails. And reasoning and problem solving, there would allow us to actually overcome the literal obstacles in our path. These are the intricate little gears turning inside our steering wheel, making sure that our raw, emotional drive to survive actually succeeds in a world that is constantly shifting.
So the crucial point is this. You are walking around right now, equipped with an absolutely incredible, highly sophisticated biological system. Every sudden surge of feeling, every moment of crystal clear logic, it is all part of a unified design specifically built to help you navigate reality. Emotion is the engine providing the necessary push. Intelligence is the steering wheel providing the required direction. Knowing how these mechanics actually work together inside your own mind, the final thought I want to leave you with today is this. How are you adapting to your world today? Are you letting the engine flood, or are you steering with purpose? Thanks so much for hanging out with me on this explainer. Keep exploring the inner workings of your own mind, and I will catch you on the next one.